The stave has 5 lines with 4 spaces between them. The first of the 4 spaces is F, as shown here. The second space is A, the third is C, and the fourth is E, giving us face, which is easy to remember. The lines are E, G, B, D, F, which you can think of as every good boy deserves favours. As the notes are shown further up the stave, so they represent notes further to the right on the keyboard. The bar lines work together with the time signature, so that in 3/4 time, the bar lines will always mark the beginning and end of every set of 3 beats. In the same way, if the time signature is 4/4, every bar will contain 4 beats. So far, we've seen only 3 time values: the crotchet, the minim, and the dotted minim. Let's now take a deep breath and look at all the note time values and their corresponding rests. These rests are silences, lasting exactly the same length of time as the notes with the same name. A minim rest lasts as long as a minim note. A crotchet rest lasts as long as the crotchet. Each note shown here has half the time value of the one on its left, so a crotchet lasts half as long as a minim, a semiquaver lasts half as long as a quaver, and so on. The rests are shown here in blue below each note value. As much as we may like the sound of music and of people talking to us, there has to be a pause every so often. Rests, however brief, are those pauses that add subtle rhythms to any music that is worth listening to. And if you are a singer, they give you a chance to snatch a breath. A dot after a note extends its value by half, so a dotted minim is worth a minim and a half, which is the same as a minim plus a crotchet. A dotted crotchet is held on for the value of a crotchet plus a quaver. There is also the tie, a curved line joining 2 notes, which tells the player to keep the first note held down for the length of both notes. Several notes can be tied to each other, which mean that the original note is held down for the total length of the tied group. Looking at the picture of the crotchet tied to a minim, the minim is worth 2 beats and the crotchet is worth 1. Total number of beats in 3/4 time is 3. These 3 beats could also be shown as a dotted minim, which is another way of saying a minim and a half, which also adds up to 3. We can see the same total of 3 beats in the next bar, where there is a crotchet worth 1, tied to a crotchet worth another 1, tied to a quaver, half a beat, and then another quaver, which is not tied and so is played rather than just held down like the other tied notes, giving us 1 plus 1 plus a half plus another half, making up a total of the 3 beats in that bar. When you start learning to play an instrument, it's a good idea to count the beats as you play. A half beat is usually counted as and, so the second bar in this example will be counted as 1, 2, 3, and the final played quaver coming up on the and. Here's another example of counting. You know that in this tune minims are worth 2 beats and crotchets are worth 1, so the first line of Pop Goes the Weasel would be counted like this: 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. As you get better at it, you'll start to feel the beat, which means that you won't have to count out loud or even in your head anymore. In classical music, mood and/or tempo instructions are usually given in Italian, but they can appear in any language. They do what it says on the tin, giving suggestions on how fast or slowly the piece should be taken, whether the mood is military, romantic, pastoral, cheerful, sombre, or whatever took the composer's fancy. We've looked at where the notes are on the stave and how they link to the keys on your keyboard. We've seen all the note values, from the seldom used breve to the rarely seen hemi-demi-semiquaver, and all the really useful notes in between. We've looked at rests, counting, and the composer's mood and tempo instructions, which show us how they intended their works to be played. When you've mastered this section, we can go on to learning to play keyboards, part 4.